Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're just going live right now. Yeah, so bear with us just a second while we get this set up. Let me begin broadcasting. Hello, everybody. I'm Eva Clay, and this is Melissa Mango. We're really happy to be here with you today. We're going to be talking about how to cultivate sexual freedom. And this is such an important topic for women in particular today, because I find that women really want to know how to liberate themselves and really claim all of the pleasure that is rightfully theirs. Mm-hmm. So we're going to dive into three key attitudes, three key behaviors, three key tools is what I'm trying to say, that you can access right now today to help you feel more liberated in your body and more expressive sexually, and to claim your pleasure. So welcome, welcome.
Yum.
Yeah, yum. Right away, let's get into the yum. This is Melissa Mango. Melissa is just an absolute rock star. I love this woman, and she's going to be co-teaching with me in the Path to Pleasure program. So right away, I want to prompt you to check out the Path to Pleasure program. We're starting in a couple of days, and we are almost full. So Melissa is going to give you a little taste of her flavor and her genius. Melissa is a somatic sexological body worker, a clinical hypnotherapist, and founder of Sensuous Society. Welcome, Melissa. Super happy to be playing. Yeah, good. Super happy to be having this conversation with you and to be co-teaching with you here. Yeah, awesome.
Wonderful. Now you got to get my crown on. Okay, there we go. The background is framing my head here.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so when Melissa and I were talking about the problem, okay, so we both encounter so many of our clients, mine in my sex therapy and sex coaching practice, and in her sexological bodywork practice, and all of the amazing things that she does to serve women and men in their pleasure. So often we hear women talking about feeling trapped, feeling stuck, or feeling shut down, feeling like there's some version of their sexual self that they want to access and to reach, but they feel like they're not able to, or that they're not allowed to. So, the first point that we want to share with you today, I want to just dive right in here so that we make sure you walk away with a lot of tools. The first point that we talked about is how important it is to have tribe, to have community, to have connection with other people, men and women, who celebrate sexuality, who have a sex positive mindset. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're hanging out with wild, promiscuous, sex positive, polyamorous, orgiastic people. You might, or you might not, depending on your flavor and your stripe. But to spend time and to get support in community where sexuality is not shameful, where it's not suppressed. Our shame lives in our social engagement system. Shame is a social phenomenon. And so when we want to counteract the blanket of suppression that shame is, community connection is number one most important thing that you can do to liberate yourself. What do you think, Melissa?
I love that. And listening to you say that, it reminds me, Sensuous Society just did our first event and stream of classes here in Austin, Texas. And we invited, over 60 guests, to come and dance, go through some connection, authentic relating game exercises, and be in the juice or the soup of the collective, and where everyone was just celebrating their sensuality. Now, it wasn't a sex party, but it was a space where people could come have, you know, an elixir and watch a sexy performance and dress up and be really embodied and talk openly about their sensuality and even flirt, you know, with their partner and it be welcome. And so it was beautiful to provide that space for people. And then Dr. Hazel Grace and I ended up doing a class following that. Edgy topics indeed, but again, giving community permission to learn things like sensual massage or sacred root massage, making it as normalized as a yoga class, because these are our bodies. And how do we get the maximum amount of joy and pleasure for us? That may look different for everyone, but how do we get permission to really just enjoy our bodies? That's why we're here, right? So it was such a joy and really fulfilling to provide, you know, that event, and then have these educational pieces that just blew people's minds. They were like, wow, I didn't know it could be so accessible and so easy and so wow. Yeah. So that was pretty neat. So that's what I mean when we talk about tribe or community and you know, really nourishing the culture around that and creating space for people to explore in their own way.
I love that expression, nourishing the culture.
Yeah.
So, you know, what about the women? And this is something I encounter a lot in my practice. So the women who, let's say, live in an area or are living in a culture where it's really not okay to talk about these kinds of things, or it's really looked down upon, and they literally don't feel safe. I'll tell you what I encounter a lot. I encounter women who might be living in a very conservative area, or they're in some kind of religious ideology. Even living in another country. You know, I work with women internationally, and they've been married for 20 years. They have a couple of kids, and they don't even feel safe to talk to their own husband about expanding sexuality and diversifying sexuality. So how can we give them tools to connect in with community where they do feel permission? You know, this is always the question. So I know what I do, what I recommend for women on this level. I want to hear from you too. And that is to give what you don't already have. So what this means is beginning to celebrate other women in their beauty, in their embodiment, and in their sensual and sexual expression. So often women are acculturated to shame or to judge or to criticize other women when they see them in a big, wild, free expression. Whether that be on social media or in your community, or you see a woman who's wearing a really short skirt or something, it's so wired deeply into our subconscious to reject this and to criticize it. And I think some of us feel like we compare ourselves, and because we don't feel as expressed or as free, then we want to bring other women down. And this is what Shakti Malan, one of my teachers, calls the women's union. And it's very subtle erosion of each other's power, of each other's sexual power.
And maybe levels of judgment too, you know, judgment or, yeah, it's a deep topic. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I get super excited about it. Great.
Jump in. Yeah, because we need to counteract these forces big time. And so how does the woman who feels isolated, who feels alone in her experience and alone in her curiosity about sex and about desire, how can she begin to counteract these forces and get permission and build tribe? Give what you don't already have. Celebrate feminine sexuality. Celebrate feminine embodiment and sensuality. And maybe even that's on social media. Maybe you leave some very positive, affirmative comments on somebody's post. Maybe you compliment a woman when she walks into a room and she's like vivacious and she's really embodied, and you can tell that she's in her pleasure. You know, celebrate her. And that begins to shift the culture and the subconscious relationship to your own expression. How about you, Melissa?
Yeah, other little ways that if you live like in a different country, or maybe you live in an isolated community, online, there are some wonderful groups. And I think you have a group within your class, correct? Of, maybe you can't have like a little neighborhood meeting, and those happen all over the world as well, which I think is really great, like little book clubs or other meetups and things like that. Women's temple, it could be named different things that kind of that community. But getting online, I mean, most everyone has an iPhone or some sort of way to log on and get into these message boards and video chats where other women are discussing things and, talking about difficult things too, not just the pleasurable and not just what is liberated, but like, where are they stuck? And because there's something about building the community and talking about it that makes it a safer place to own your experience and then move past whatever difficulty you may be facing. So, yeah.
Totally. And I find that it just begins to even build the neural pathway of expression, to vocalize and to speak out loud what you're experiencing sexually. I work with so many women who will say to me in our first conversation, they'll say, "This is really hard for me to talk about." So there's like these invisible kind of gags on women. Whatever you do, don't talk about sex. And there's a fascinating study. I'll share a link in the comments below. But there's a fascinating study that came out a few years ago about what happens for women when they simply gather and talk openly about sex. So this was a study done, I think, in Northern California in Berkeley. And there was no intervention, no therapy, nothing done. It was just a peer groups. When they got together and talked about sex for 30 minutes, sexual pleasure in all of these women spiked, and sexual dysfunction declined. So they were more orgasmic. They felt more sensation in their body. They felt more psychologically liberated. They felt happier with their partner. And this is, I think, maybe the number one most exciting thing that came from this study about women talking to each other about sex. And that is, they felt more empowered to ask their partner for what they wanted. Hallelujah.
Beautiful. Yeah. And when you're talking about neural pathways, it's kind of, I like to use the analogy of going on a hike. If you go on a hike, you can see the trail, you've done it, 150 times, you know how to get there, you know exactly where it leads. But if you want to experience something different and you want your body to respond in new ways, you need to try, even if it's just going off the path a little bit, and exploring, like, where does this lead? And then we develop, the chemistry inside of our bodies to respond differently. So neat, which we'll get really in depth and geek out on it when we talk about the pleasure practice that I'd like to share. So it's exciting. I don't want to share too much.
Well, let's talk about that next. But I do just want to say, that in the Path to Pleasure program, this is exactly what we do. And Melissa is going to be teaching in that program. This is a virtual online coaching program, so you can access it from anywhere in the world, from wherever you are. And we meet every week for 10 weeks for live coaching with myself and a host of amazing guest teachers and a group of incredible women. And we're going to talk about sex, and we're going to begin to shift our relationship to sexuality at the cellular level so that pleasure can arise, so orgasm can arise, so assertion and power and confidence and self-esteem and vitality and aliveness and on and on. So many things can begin to rise in your life so that you're living the life that you really love. Cool.
Sounds yummy.
It's going to be so yummy. Yes. So, tool number two. I think we're both really itching to share this with you because we're so excited. It's what we call simple pleasures. Simple pleasures. You want to take it away, Melissa? Talk about that?
Yeah. So simple, just everyday pleasures. I think we get caught up in work or children or what we're doing or just our day-to-day, that slowing down enough to just, again, orient yourself to the every pleasure, we often forget. And so one example that I like to use with clients is even just like, I'm wearing a scarf now, but I've got this other nice electric green one. So for example, if you are, getting dressed or something, this doesn't have to be sexual, but you can kind of see how you can start steering it that direction. So this is something you can just do in your home, anywhere, even at work. And like, if you're going to put something on, instead of just, throw the scarf on and run out the door, you actually slow down and put it on. And when it makes contact, you can do it too, Eva.
I just grabbed something.
When it makes, now slow down just about here. When it makes contact, and I'll let others join in too if you want to. When it makes contact with the back of your neck, slow it down and really, feel what is that fabric or what is that sensation there. And I like to kind of drag it, so that it kind of tickles the back of my neck. And this one has these little dangly things at the end, so that'll feel really nice. And just tune in to what that actually feels like on the back of your neck. And move and slow it down by half if you can. And then just let it drag until it comes off the other side. And sometimes we don't even, slow down to just take that simple little sip into pleasure. Maybe it's putting on your gloves. You put them on, instead of just putting them on, you're actually slowing down and really taking in the information through your skin, giving your body permission to actually take in, what does this feel like on my body? And there's a practice called sensate focus where there's no goal. You're not trying to get somewhere. You're just simply feeling. And another tool that I like to bring in is just your breath. When you breathe into your belly and you mix in sensation, again, whether it's gloves, maybe it's when you get into bed and you pull the covers up, like slow it down by half and just feel what your body is actually picking up on. It's a fun experiment. There's no right or way to do it. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And we're going to go deeper into, okay, how do we take that practice and go in even deeper and why it's so important. You're orienting yourself to pleasure in your just every day. And some other examples would be, when I pick up my glass, it's just a thing, take glass, take my water, right? Like feeling temperature. When you actually slow down, it's like, ooh, that actually feels really nice. Again, you're creating that chemistry, you're creating those neural pathways to, again, remind yourself that pleasure is always here, somewhere in the body, whether it's like sitting on the chair, feeling the scarf, taking a sip, running your hands across a fabric. It's always there. You just need to just tune into it. That's nice.
I love it. I love how Melissa and I, this is why I invite her to co-teach in my programs, is because we think alike. We end up teaching so much of the same stuff, even though we never even talk about it. And I love you.
The feeling's mutual, Eva.
I call it the pleasure practice. So this is also something I teach in all of my programs, because we literally begin to build the neural pathways and focus our attention on what feels good instead of what doesn't feel good. And it's a quality of mindfulness. And when we begin to, I love these words that you use, Melissa, about to orient ourselves to pleasure. So imagine if you're doing this every day, if you're drinking in and savoring all of the pleasures around you, the sensual pleasures, and even the pleasure of your thoughts, even the pleasure of what you're seeing around you. And you really identify what brings you pleasure. It begins to, as a metaphor, widen that neural pathway for pleasure, so that when it comes time for lovemaking or self-pleasure, then you have like a super highway already developed in the brain and in the nervous system and in the innervation between the genitals and the brain. And more can flow. And I want to invite anyone who's watching to think about this. When you're in lovemaking or in any kind of intimate engagement, whether you're holding hands or maybe you're kissing or some kind of expression of intimacy and love, where is your mind? Where is your focus? What are you focusing on? And in this work, in the Path to Pleasure work, we begin to entrain the mind and the attention to focus on the pleasure. And from there, we build an arc where you're literally reaping the rewards of so many positive neurohormones, and so much good chemistry begins to circulate through the body and vital life force energy, so that your whole being changes. So it goes so far beyond sexual pleasure. It goes way out into the universe, into your power, into your purpose on the planet, into the way that you share your light and the way that you impact other people through the light of your embodied pleasure. And what Melissa is going to teach, I couldn't say this, it's kind of like a secret. I couldn't say this in the advertisements because I'd be like banned. I'm already banned everywhere.
I'm in Facebook jail.
I'd be jailed.
I consider that a compliment.
It's a good sign. Melissa, because she is such just a brilliant mind-body expert and a sexological body worker. So she is going to teach us about self-pleasure. She's going to teach us how to pleasure ourselves, not only erotically, but intelligently, so that we begin to build orgasmic capacity all over the body. Cervical orgasms, vaginal orgasms, clitoral orgasms, nipple-gasms, ear-gasms, everything.
How about full body gasms?
Full body gasms. Yes, bring it.
Because I think sometimes there's so much focus on the genitals that we forget that, I mean, our entire bodies, I mean, we're going to make it to where you can start opening up your pleasure pathways to take it away from just genital. I mean, scalpgasms. I'm sure that exists. Pretty sure.
Yeah. Yes. I was in a Kundalini yoga conference retreat all weekend, and I was having plenty of like orgasms without even touching myself, without anything touching me. So energy gasms, Kriya, running, sacred Kriya energy through your body is totally what I'm about. So we're going to teach you how to wire all of that into your nervous system. And even if you've never had an orgasm, even if you've never had an orgasm with a partner, even if you only orgasm one way, or you need a vibrator to orgasm, whatever your like orgasmic story is, we're going to expand it.
Woo! I'm excited.
Okay, so it starts with the pleasure practice. Let's move on to tool number 3.
Ooh.
Tool number 3. Now, this might be true for you. If this is true for you, I would love to hear your experience in the comments. So, chat with us. Let us know what's coming up for you. And we're going to come back into the comments and respond to everybody. So you're going to get a lot of really great free coaching and free tools here from Melissa and I. Tool number 3, befriending desire. Even just the sound of that feels good, right? So many women I work with will tell me, I don't even know what I want. I don't even know what I want. I don't know what I want sexually. I don't even know what's possible sexually. I don't know how to ask for what I want because I don't know. And this goes beyond the bedroom. This goes beyond sex. This goes into, the greater whole of their life in general. And I find that desire is like a muscle that we build, that the more we attune to it and the more we welcome it, the more it begins to inform us at the level of soul. So to me, this is a very, very deep spiritual practice. And now I want to preface it with this before we go to Melissa and we get really deep into this, is that I'm speaking of desire not just in a sexual sense, but in a global sense. I know without a shadow of a doubt that the soul communicates to you through your desire field. And this is a tantric precept. Buddhists, we have an argument about this, but this is a tantric precept that your desire is like are the breadcrumbs of your life that lead you down the path of your greatest power and your greatest wholeness and your greatest service to the world. And if you think back into your life, into every important decision you've ever made, it originated with a desire. And if we're disconnected from our desires, like our culture trains women to be, then we're missing that very important internal guidance system. So we're here to teach you how to reconnect and reactivate your desire field, even if you never act on your desires, but to listen to them deeply and lovingly as a path of guidance, as a tool of guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that inner compass is what I like. That's how I word it for me. It's sometimes we're taught to just, put others first, be polite, let them choose whether it's, where we're eating, if you want to sit in the front seat versus the back seat. And when we hear other people's desires, even sometimes we're like, well, I'm actually calling the shots. So it's really interesting. And I do a lot of deep work one-on-one and also in couples where this plays out. And how do we tune in to where everyone gets, within reason, their desires met? How do we listen to other people? But most importantly, like, how do we listen to that? Your body is always sending you messages, all the time. It's always giving you, when you have choices, there's something that feels really good that you would like to, that you desire. And sometimes we go the other direction. I've worked with countless women that, going back as they were children, because they were told, don't do that, go do that, which was against that internal system. Go kiss grandma, for example, do this instead. And so it's interesting how that follows up in us into adulthood. It's fascinating. And so we're rewiring, going back to that rewiring thing, we're giving you permission to tune into that in just really subtle ways, like giving you choices and have you go, tuning inside with the breath and go, actually, I prefer this over here, or I actually want to do this. Yeah.
I love how
and
you
just honoring.
I love how you wove in the breath. This is so important because, and I want to add this in as a tool, and Melissa, hear from you if you have other tools to add about the breath, is that notice that when you think about something you desire, or even one thing I'm going to ask everyone to do as you're watching this, and maybe even when we're done here, is to make a list of 10 desires. And they can be random, supernatural, crazy, weird, wild, like they'll never come true. Like, I have a desire for a horse with wings. Like, I want to fly on a Pegasus. I have since I was a little girl. Like, I want calorie-free French fries. I want, a money tree. I want, like, all kinds of things I want. So when we begin to like tune into that, watch what happens in the body. Typically what will happen is contraction and tension. And the body, on a very subtle level, will begin to, like, your breath will begin to get shallow and you'll begin to feel tension. Because what else is running in the subconscious is this script of, you can't have it, or that's not possible, or you don't deserve that, or you have to work hard first, or whatever your subconscious story is going to come up against you naming and owning and claiming that desire. And so to be aware that that subconscious script surfaces in the body as tension. So we work to undo and to reverse that resistance to naming desire through the breath. Deep, deep breaths. Is there a particular breath, Melissa, that you would recommend?
I mean, I like to do just a short, it doesn't even have to be like a long meditation, but just kind of a really simple body scan. And you can have your eyes open, or you can just close them or bringing your gaze down. But breathing from the pelvis, breathing from where you're making action to where you're sitting. So if you're sitting in a chair right now, or on a couch, or on the floor, really just breathing from that root, that space, and letting the belly kind of expand naturally. And then exhale, dropping the pelvis. See if you can imagine, or just pretend if you need to, dropping down with the pelvis. And what I like to mix with the breath is, I play this game, and I just thought of this, Eva, with other friends, where we ask each other, would you like to do this or this? Okay, and you can do it with a girlfriend, you can do it over the phone, but doing what's called the sacred pause before you answer. And this may be a fun little thing for you to do before we start Eva's class. So you have a little bit of home play to do, where you have a friend ask you preferences on something. And it could be simple, like, do you want to do this yoga class or do you want to go to lunch? And as you're being asked, pause, take a breath from that root place, from where you're sitting, your sits bones, your pelvis, your belly, and tune in. Do you actually have an honest choice that's not attached to your friend, that's not attached to your children or your partner, not attached to anybody else's preferences but your own? And notice what your answer is. Yeah.
Mm.
And I love to do that in workshops too. We come with creative things to answer, you know, whether it's eliciting a yes or a no, or a difference between this versus this, because we're developing this inner compass. We're developing that muscle so that you're really clear and you know exactly what you want and you listen to that. So, yeah.
Melissa, again, I love it. I do almost the exact same thing in my workshops.
Of course you do.
Yeah. And this is a big part, again, of Path to Pleasure, is having this daily practice where you're tuning into your desires. And so it's interesting how our tool number 3, which is befriending desire, hooks back into tool number 1, which is develop a culture, a tribe of permission. So when you're in a group of women and everybody is celebrating you for your desires, whatever they are, then of course it reinforces and it rewards. So the reward system in the brain begins to light up. And that every time you experience a desire and you name it, your dopamine circuits flood and you're getting lit up. So desire becomes a really good thing. And of course, we need it to be a good thing in order to know where we're going in our lives. And I like to give women this tool beginning with, I have a desire to. I have a desire to. I have a desire to. And you can do this on your own. So this is the work for this tool, is combining the breath that Melissa just named and making a list of 10 things you desire, and let it come from your stream of consciousness. Let it come from deep in the unconscious well. Let it come deep in the pelvic bowl and from the genitals, from the pussy, and let it roll out onto the page. And I think what you will create is a masterpiece that comes straight from your soul.
I like it.
Yeah. Yummy.
Everyone take a nice deep breath together.
Yes.
And that's the other thing too. I've been in workshops and where people are even uncomfortable with like taking an audible breath, you know, because it's seen like new agey or too like woo woo, but it's like, that's our life force. That's how we relax and like relax our nervous system too.
Yeah.
So let's develop a culture that like celebrates the exhale. Please.
Please. Yes. Absolutely.
And noise, also just noise in general. Noise, pleasure, noise with food, noise with their, yeah. I can go off about that, but
noise. I know if you ever share a meal with me, you'll know it's very audible. You know?
Like, yes.
Great. Well, again, I want to direct everyone to check out The Path to Pleasure. It's thepathtopleasure.com. And I'll leave a link here in the comments below, thepathtopleasure.com. Melissa will be co-teaching with me, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to go so deep into so many practices and tools that's going to blow your mind. I'm super excited about this program. It's the 5th year that I've offered this, and every year is just absolutely magical, and it keeps getting better and better. So I don't want you to be left out. I want you to join us and reap all of the magic and the beauty that comes from this, including pleasure, orgasm, assertion, power, confidence, all good things, and an amazing community and tribe of women, which might be actually the most important thing of all. So, Melissa, where can we find you?
You can find me at sexlovesoul.com.
How did you get that URL?
I bought it. No,
Oh
I
my
actually
God.
I may need to change it because it has the word sex,
Oh,
and
right.
we may need to go a different direction. And if anyone has any questions, you can always email me at melissa@bodyjoy.org. It's a new company that I just purchased in Austin, and I'm rolling out a new program and taking over the business and rebranding it. So yeah, it's some exciting transition times right now.
So sexlovesoul.com.
Yes. And
Yes.
melissa@bodyjoy.org for orgasm.
Of course.
Of course.
Alrighty, well, we'll put those links also below so that you can easily find her, and please get a taste of her magic. She has so much to offer the world. Yeah. Okay,
Awesome. Thank you
everybody.
for having me, Eva, and I look forward to this.
Absolutely. Okay, bye, everybody. Mwah. Have an amazing, pleasure-filled day. Bye.
Bye.